Thank you, Matt. Well, an 80-year-old family secret and unsolved murder unfolded in the pages of a new book, Lady in Room Number 9.
MTN's Caitlin Aguiles finds out more about the suspects and theories surrounding this case.
I didn't realize my grandmother was murdered till I was in high school.
On the morning of April 19th, 1940, groans could be heard coming from Room 9 in the Empire Hotel. Inside, a woman, badly beaten on her bed, foaming at the mouth, unconscious, her face swollen, bruises covering her body, her left eye blackened, swollen shut, a traumatic blow to the head. 2 days later, she succumbed to a brain hemorrhage, unable to say who her attacker was. 80 years later, her grandson wrote a book detailing the unsolved murder of his grandmother, a family secret that had unraveled over the years.
Early on, my mother wouldn't say much at all. I remember as a kid asking Mom several times, what happened with Grandma and Grandpa, and she would always just say, well, she died young. And that was kind of all she would say. It wasn't until high school, my sister and I were going through a cedar chest that was at the bottom of my mom's bed. I don't remember what we were looking for, but anyway, in the process of looking through that, we found some newspaper clippings. I realized that was grandmother. And so then I confronted my mom and started asking her more questions about it.
Marie Teresa Evans had been married 3 times before meeting Nick Evans. The two decided to leave Anaconda to live in Butte, where the mining industry and jobs were flourishing. She left her children with her mother and never saw them again. The Evans had moved to Butte and opened a bar, the Belmont, which was located at the corner of East Mercury and Arizona, right next to the red light district, where crimes and temptations ran rampant. One of the most famous buildings where the girls used to live and work in that district was the Copper Block.
So it was a house of prostitution that was pretty well known in its time.
By 1923, the building's name had changed to the Empire Hotel, where, 17 years later, Teresa's beating and murder would take place in Room 9.
If you look at some of the old maps, you can tell, a lot of people know it by the name Venus Alley, and you could not see from the street, from East Mercury, you could not see the backs of the buildings. It would have been very, very easy to commit almost any kind of crime there.
Teresa's life seemed to be plagued with tragedy, even in death, a secret kept, and a grave hidden away.
It gone from just a curiosity to see if I could find out more to then finding out details, and then it started to become more personal. It really became very tragic to me personally.
4 months before the beating and her death, her husband, Nick Evans, had disappeared after losing their bar, never to be heard from again.
I tried to do a lot of research to see if I could track him down and more information. The only thing I was really able to find was that he buried in Bulgaria.
3 weeks before the beating and her death, she had moved into the Empire Hotel. Ohman said this was her lowest point. Sometime between her husband's disappearance and the move, she met the main suspect, D.C. Cabby Young.
We worked as a cook in Butte for years, on and off at different restaurants.
The night of her death, witnesses say the two were seen drinking together in her room. The first person to find her unconscious body was Marion Grant, a welfare worker who boarded at the hotel. D.C. Young had been lurking outside Teresa's room, and Grant sent him to get a doctor. He returned without one. When a doctor did arrive, Teresa was sent to a hospital. 2 officers were notified, Jack Dugan and Alex Cuthill.
In 1940, the police department consisted of about 50 officers.
Mayor Osworth was a very progressive mayor. He wanted the police department to be one of the best in the Northwest, and that's why he brought in and scheduled an FBI school.
The crime scene was contaminated, various people going in and out, but when Jack Dugan saw Teresa's beaten body at the hospital, he immediately looked to D.C. Young as his prime suspect.
When it's a violent nature, a lot of times comes back to a crime of passion and jealousy.
Or given to where the individual worked, it could have been to send a message to the other people that worked in that hotel.
During Dugan's testimony, he said that Young's story kept changing.
My gut feeling after I read the inquest that he was the one that did it. And then when I read the jury's conclusion, when they said they didn't find him enough evidence that he did it, I was very surprised. Even now when I reread parts of it, you know, I find myself getting teary, you know, because, sorry. Now she was my grandmother. You know, to read for the first time how badly beaten her body was and the description given by the mortician and the physician on staff, it was very hard to read. And you realize, you know, that was my family.
Through the unsolved murder of Teresa Evans, it brought her family closer together years later.
Incidentally, I got a message from one of my cousins just through all this who I hadn't talked to in years. He and his uncle are planning to go redo the plot this summer and redo her headstone. In fact, we're considering doing some kind of a memorial service on the date of her death this year. Haven't been able to put it together, but I'm hoping to invite my siblings, cousins, other family members, just kind of have I don't know, a family closure.
In Butte, Caitlin Aguilas, MTN News.
Oh, thank you, Caitlin. By the way, that case was ruled a homicide, but the county attorney at the time threw the case out. Very interesting story.
Wow, incredible story.
Yep. Thank you for that story, Caitlin. Good stuff.
Absolutely.